Hello, my name is Matthew, and I'm here to do the literary dinner party tag. This is an original tag created by Hannah from Hannah's Books, and I was actually tagged by Hannah's husband, David, who also partaked in the fun and um, tagged me. So it's a great list of questions. It's dinner party themed, and I'll just start. Question number one: when you are at a dinner party, do you ask people what they are currently reading? If not, why not? And I do not. I don't like dinner parties. If you've been watching my channel for um, a good length of time, you might have um, inferred that I'm a bit of a recluse. I don't. I prefer not to leave my house, and um, the social circles that I have a really great core group of friends, but I even still prefer one-on-one conversation, or maybe a group of three, but a whole round table of even my closest friends all sitting together and talking at the same time is just a sensory overload. I prefer not to talk at all, and um, more often than not, I can't even follow along with the conversation because there's so much talking going on. Um, but the dinner parties that I have been at, one of the least interesting things that I could bring up or even want to hear would be um, the books that I'm reading, or books or other people are reading. Those are really great conversations in my mind um, when they happen one on one or a small group, but over a table where people are talking about their lives and their families and funny stories and interesting anecdotes and the news of the day, and all of the things that would create raucousness and laughter. Um, I wouldn't want to um, inject any of the books that I'm reading over that table. Um, have you ever have you ever received any great recommendations at a dinner party for a new book to read, or had an especially interesting bookish conversation there? And nothing comes to mind. I don't recall ever getting a great recommendation at a dinner party. Um, Again, I'm not one to bring up the books that I'm reading, or to talk about um, anything anything revolving around literature. And um, I certainly have had really great bookish conversations, given great recommendations, and have gotten lots of recommendations. Um, Maybe at a cafe, sitting down with um, someone, if you're sitting there with a book or the paper, and talking, but um, a fun night of eating and drinking, um, I don't recall, so I don't think so. Question number two: which authors, living or dead, would you invite to a dinner party? These invites can go out one at a time or in groups, so various authors would get to meet each other. And uh, David, Hannah's husband, had a fabulous answer. He mentioned Anthony Bourdain, which I think would just be great. Just such an interesting, opinionated person. The few books that I've read by him are fabulous. Really interesting. The Kitchen Confidential, and he had a handful of other um, culinary themed books, um, but uh, which authors, living or dead, and um, this kind of follows. A lot of these questions kind of bleed into one another, and I just couldn't help but be a silent party, just someone that got to sit at a distant corner of the table that was being um, held by Oscar Wilde. Oscar Wilde holding court at one of his famous dinner parties during the season. Uh, I just think would be so fabulous. I wouldn't want to partake in the conversation. I would just love to just sit there and listen to him talk. Two other people that come to mind is Samuel Taylor Coleridge, and then Madame de Stael, the French literary and social figure, Madame de Stael. Um, Something that Oscar Wilde and Coleridge have in common is they're both notable talkers. And so the things that I've read for Oscar Wilde, for as funny and witty and quick his plays can be, and how gorgeous and purple his short stories and his novel thought-provoking can be, paradoxical and enigmatic and scandalous, and all of those things. One of the most intriguing aspects of all of that is this near universal acknowledgement that he was still a better talker. He was a better conversationalist than even the best of his writings. Of course, it's hyperbole and things like that, but it's just fascinating to me. And Coleridge has the same notoriety, known for being this manic, explosive, emotive, demonstrative talker that would just mesmerize you with his enthusiasm and his ability to be articulate and kind of persuasive, and all of those things, just really compelling, interesting talkers. And with Coleridge, what intrigues me about Madame de Stael is this goes into one of the other questions, but I was reading the Richard Holmes biography. He has a two-part biography on Coleridge, and Coleridge was another one of these people, like Oscar Wilde, that could hold court, and there were all of these like fabulous episodes where Coleridge was this like inexhaustibly curious intellectual who would just pour over every book he could get his hands on, and he had such an intellectual and emotional aptitude for the things that he was reading that he had real comprehension. And so these great stories of some of the greatest minds of Europe, the doctors and scientists and mathematicians and poets and heads of state and royalty. And Coleridge, as I was reading, was so well versed and knowledgeable on nearly every subject and entertaining that he could sit with the best of the best of his time and keep up. And the great thing about Madame de Stael, who I know much less about than Coleridge, was the story goes, she was the only person that could out-talk Coleridge. And so there was this dinner party where Coleridge was finding himself befuddled and stumbling over his words and not being able to get a word in edgewise, while Madame de Stael was just kind of running circles around him with all of her conversation. I just love that. Um, and I was just looking at my shelves before I hit record, and I saw a David Sedaris book, and I would also, as far as a living writer and personality, I think it would be a memorable experience to visit the Sedaris household and sit there with David and Amy and the rest of these characters. So that could be fun too. Um, which characters would you invite to a dinner party? And I just reread A Christmas Memory. I've I've been reading it every year as an annual visit, um, and there's something so compelling with these characters. It's Miss Sook and Buddy, the little boy, and this funny old dotty woman, and they have this adventure um, making these fruitcakes, and it's not a dinner party. It's them in the kitchen, but um, every time I read the book, and I even think about it throughout the year, I would just love to be in that kitchen with those two. And when I think of just um, these sorts of hypotheticals, I tend to think about the most outrageous situations. And so, um, even though I probably would not enjoy myself, I wouldn't, I don't know if I could resist the temptation to be a part of uh, any of the soirees and galas and these big um, decadent parties um, that inhabit the novels of F. Scott Fitzgerald, all of the characters through all these Fitzgerald novels. I'd love to be there in the first half of the book, not the second half, but just the first half, the fun part, um, to just be in the Gatsby, uh, one of those Gatsby parties. I wouldn't have a good time, but I'd remember it. Have you ever wanted to invite a historical figure after reading a biography or autobiography of that person? Who would it be? And I don't think it's a coincidence that um, some of the literary figures that I'm um, so interested in and would like to know more of are also the people that I've read biographies on. And I just mentioned um, Oscar Wilde and Coleridge. Um, I already had an interest in them. I love their writing, um, but the biographies um, just changed and gave so much more life to even the written page. Knowing about these people and having an understanding of their personality. Um, I don't read too many biographies. Just thinking about this parallel makes me think that I really should, because kind of like anything, the more that you investigate, the more you're interested in learning more and um, having that type of companionship. Um, what would you serve at one of these parties from questions 2 and 4, or perhaps what would one of your literary guests bring if you hosted a potluck meal? And uh, for this kind of scenario, I would really much prefer to be the host. I've hosted a few small gatherings, nothing, no big dinner parties, but 4 or 5 people maximum. And I like that I can spend most of the time away from the table and just allow the dinner party to allow my friends to have a good time and just sort of tend to the evening. That's a much more comfortable situation for me. And um, I actually love to cook. Um, for my daily routine, I'm an incredibly utilitarian eater. I prefer to have very simple, quick meals that I can just consume and be done with. But if I'm cooking for somebody else, I really enjoy the experience of being in the kitchen and watching cooking videos and reading books on um, um, culinary history and things like that. Um, for the past few years, my go-to um, really extravagant show-off meal is cocka, and I've made it a handful of times. Always received with great acclaim. It takes me about 2 days to make it. It's these chicken thighs and pearl onions and mushrooms that are cooked in this red wine sauce. And the red wine sauce just turns into this luxurious, velvety, silky smooth, incredibly rich and delicious sauce. It's the kind of dish where you need multiple loaves of bread, because no matter how much sauce is in these plates, they will be completely sopped clean um, with crusty bread. And um, I'm always really proud of it. It's a whole ordeal. It takes a long time to make and all of those things, but um, I really enjoy making it, um, and it also smells fabulous. So, what is your favorite meal scene in a book or screen adaptation of a book? Um, and I pulled out a handful of. I just started having these thoughts about like little meal scenes, and it looks like most of them are French, but um, I want to start with uh, Candide by Voltaire. And it's when Candide and his travel mate make it to El Dorado, and it's a land where a land of gold. The earth the soil is all gold, and so it's paradise. And here's a description of uh, a meal that they have at a little inn that they stop into. They were served 4 soups, each garnished with 2 parrots, a boiled condor weighing 200 pounds, 2 extremely delicious roasted monkeys, 300 colibris on one platter, and 600 hummingbirds on another, exquisite stews and delicious pastries. All this was served on dishes made of a kind of rock crystal. The waiters and waitresses poured an assortment of drinks made from sugar cane. I just love it. I wouldn't want to be there, but the these really over the top dinner scenes in some of these French books. Um, and what's the other one I want to read? There's a funeral feast described in Against Nature by Hausman. This is my copy. And that's the Comte de Montesquieu, famous dandy. And so it's going to be this funeral feast where everything is black. And I remember reading this years and years ago, and coming up to it and going, well, what sort of foods are black? And I just, this might be a little bit long, but I'm just going to read it if you don't mind indulging me. Um, One of these meals, modeled on an 18th century original, had been a funeral feast to mark the most ludicrous of personal misfortunes. The dining room, draped in black, opened out onto a garden metamorphosed for the occasion, the paths being strewn with charcoal, the ornamental pond edged with a black basalt and filled with ink, and the shrubberies replanted with cypresses and pines. The dinner itself was served on a black cloth adorned with baskets of violets and scabious. Candelabra shed an eerie green light over the tables, and tapers flickered in the chandeliers. While a hidden orchestra played funeral marches, the guests were waited on by naked negresses, wearing only slippers and stockings and cloth of silver embroidered with tears. Dining off black bordered plates, the company had enjoyed turtle soup, Russian rye bread, ripe olives from Turkey, caviar, mullet botargo, black puddings from Frankfurt, game served in sauces the color of licorice and boot polish, truffle jellies, chocolate creams, plum puddings, nectarines, pears and grape juice syrup, mulberries and black heart cherries. From dark-tinted glasses they had drunk the wines of Lemaine and Roussolin, of Tenedos, Valdepenes, and Oporto. And after coffee and walnut cordial, they had rounded off the evening with kvass, porter, and stout. Absolutely fabulous. I love that description of this crazy, terrifying, unwelcoming, macabre affair. And let me see what, I don't want to get off topic. Dinner parties aren't only the times of people to share food and drink. Are there any literary scenes you love where characters get together over brunch, afternoon, tea, picnics, cocktail parties, etc.? And another unfortunate drinking episode that comes to mind, and hopefully that if anybody's still watching at this point, hopefully you can help me. There is, I believe it's The Sun Also Rises by Hemingway, and there's been days of partying and drinking and debauchery, and just these people are just exhausting their senses, and there's a character that's sitting in a cafe just stumbling out of his mind, drunk. Days and days of just doing nothing but drinking and partying, and now there's this person just beside himself, and someone else comes in and goes, well, what's going on? And the guy's like, I can't take it. I can't take this partying anymore. Outside, there's still this big festival going on. And the other guy, trying to console this drunken stupor of a man, decides to help sober him up and starts feeding him absinthe. And it's just, this guy at his total wit's end, needs just rest and bed, is now just having absinthe poured down his throat. It's just such a funny scene to me. And then a cringe-worthy dinner party scene. And one of my favorite books, Bovard and Picochet by Gustave Flaubert. It's these two guys, and they're uh, trying to show off all of the agricultural and culinary talents that they have picked up by reading all of these books. And they've recently moved into this town, and they're having all of their neighbors over so they can um, put all of their newly found knowledge on display. And I don't know. I did find. Um, let's see. The oysters. Bovard sat the two ladies next to him. Picochet, the mayor to his left, the priest to his right, and they started in on the oysters. The oysters tasted of silt. Bovard apologized profusely, and Picochet got up to go yell into the kitchen. During the entire first course, composed of brill with a vol au vent and pigeon stew, the conversation revolved around the best way to make cider. After which, they started in on the foods that were difficult to digest. Naturally, the doctor was consulted. So, the meal is disastrous, and it goes on, and the neighbors are sort of looking around looking around this house and looking at all the junk in the backyard and these food items that are in their dishes, and it just all completely blows up on their faces, which is a recurring theme of the novel Bovard and Picochet. When the pandemic ends, what will you serve at your first dinner party or take to the first potluck you attend? And I don't know. I don't think I'm making I don't think I'm making cocka van anytime soon. What I would really like is a coffee affair to use my little grinder, um, fresh ground coffee, and make really strong French press coffee, and serve pastries and cookies, and just enjoy coffee and snacks. That would be really ideal for me. Maybe Madeleines. What Madeleines? And question number 10 is, which booktubers would you like to invite? The implication being, who would you tag? And I'm always so late to doing these. I feel like this tag has made its rounds. I don't know who's been tagged, but if you're watching this and you're interested in doing it, it's a really fun list of questions. You're more than welcome. You are invited. You're invited to the dinner party. So that's all I have to say. And Hannah, thank you for creating the tag. David, thank you for tagging me. And everyone else, thank you for watching. Leave a comment if you would like. And goodbye. Take care. Thank you. Bye.